Good morning, guys. Hello and welcome to this episode number 29 of the RDO podcast. As always, I'm with my brother Alex, and I'm the co-host, Jason Vodkell. How are you, brother?
I'm good. I've got a couple of shout-outs before we start today.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Start with shout-outs.
The first one's a product shout-out.
Right.
That is not endorsed us at all, but is fascinating technology. And I want to give a shout-out to, I believe it's an Australian company called Lavalin.
Lavalin, okay.
It's a deodorant
Right.
that you put on.
Is it made out of lanolin?
Don't know what it's made out of. I should look.
Yeah.
Once a week.
Really?
So before you go to bed, you wash your pits, and then you put the probably half the amount that like your pinky fingernail,
Right.
and it's a very thick paste, and you put it on your underarm. Same on the outside.
Yep.
And then you go to sleep, and it kind of sets in,
Right.
and you don't stink. So it says everyone's different. I'm getting 7 days.
Really?
7 days.
So I'd get 24 hours out of it.
Well,
I'm
you
a
still
sweaty
sweat,
man.
because it's not antiperspirant, so it doesn't. You still sweat.
Right, but you just don't stink.
You don't stink. So, but I'm sweating less because I'm sweating the same, but a lot of deodorants I use, you just sweat that off first, like you melt the deodorant off.
Yeah.
And how many shirts I've ruined. The amount of black shirts that I've got that look like I've just got schmegged down the side of it from putting my shirt on is ridiculous.
Yeah.
No more problem. Massive shout out. I think it's very expensive, but you use a lot less.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. Wow, so what's the company name again?
Lavalin.
Lavalin. Alright, check them out. So
Second shout-out.
Australian company?
Yeah, I think so.
Alright, let's support Australian companies. So
Yeah.
shout out to Lavalin. I might check it out myself.
So second shout out to Bitcoin,
Right.
which hit $70,000 Australian this morning. Right, so anyone that took my advice and didn't buy.
Can we go back? Was it 2 months ago that you were telling people not to buy at $22,000?
No, it wasn't 22. It was like 40. It was like 40.
Nah,
it was over 40 grand.
I'm gonna look back at the old tapes.
Check the tape. Yeah. So 70,000.
Right.
And I happened to make a Bitcoin trade, and then Uncle Elon steps in. Shout out to Uncle Elon. Elon Musk posts a picture, like a cartoon picture with Bitcoin in it, and with the quote, "Just for today." Right. So
he loves it, doesn't he? It's amazing how he's become the most powerful man on Twitter. Used to be Donald Trump, now it's Elon Musk.
Well, someone gave me another insight, and which I find interesting, because he hates the SEC, right? He's got the Security Investments Commission. He despises them, right? He just thinks that they make laws for the sake of making laws. Anyway, because crypto is not really sanctioned under any of those laws, I feel like this is him getting his. He's not allowed to talk about any other markets. It's illegal for him. He actually didn't. He's got an agreement with the SEC that he's no longer allowed to tweet about like Tesla-related stock.
Right, which is why he's so active in the crypto space.
Yeah, because he can go.
And look, it makes perfect sense too if he hates the SEC and the SEC doesn't really have the regulations around cryptocurrencies. Then why wouldn't you get Tesla to accept Bitcoin so then you can do your business dealings away from the SEC?
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. So shout out to Elon and shout out to Bitcoin. Well done.
So now we discussed this, but we keep forgetting. So we ran a bit of a.
So you're going to tell everyone to buy it now?
No. No.
We'll be here in 2 months' time. Bitcoin's at $1 million.
Well, one of the pages I follow, their algorithm thinks it could get to $270,000 US this cycle.
So, FOMO investors, calling all FOMO investors, please purchase your Bitcoin at historic high.
There are, again, I can't justify buying it at all-time highs, even though I just did. And
you bought it at an all-time high, and now it's gone to an all-time higher.
it's an all-time higher.
Right.
But there are some other small cap ones out there that people could look at if you want to get better bang for your buck. Because you've got to think, don't forget the figure. Forget what that figure is. What you want to see is a high percentage yield. That's the idea of investing. So,
And that's the thing too, is that as the price of Bitcoin goes higher and higher, that you need higher jumps to get the same percentage
exactly.
profit than you would off a smaller
Exactly.
coin. Yeah.
So we ran a test. We're trying to sort of work out this YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting. So we ran a test, and thank you for everyone who did participate in the test that we did the other week, where you jumped on and left some comments, regardless what the comments actually were. Very interesting results. So to detail what those results were. So there's a thing with YouTube where if you don't really know how YouTube works, obviously views are one of the main metrics, but there's also a thing they call impressions. And impressions is how many YouTube users does YouTube show your thumbnail and your clip to potentially view your video. And that's what we were trying to increase, because obviously we're trying to increase our audience outside of our current listener base. So the only way to do that is to get it out to more people. Now, obviously we had the week where everyone was commenting on it, and we had a week either side where there was less comments. Now, the week before all the comments, we had 140 total impressions. Bless you.
Thank you.
So 140, it was 146 odd total impressions. That obviously came out a week before this video. Then you had the comment video, which all you guys helped us out on. And then you had the week after that, which had only had like 60 impressions. The commented on video had 4,100 impressions.
Whoa.
4,100 impressions. And it wasn't even that many comments. It was just a couple. Which just shows, this is why all the big guys on YouTube are talking about, just throw something in the comments, just throw something in the comments.
Yeah.
Because that's what YouTube's going after. They want interaction on their platform. And like I think you said a few weeks ago, it looks like YouTube's trying to become the next meeting place. Now it looks like Facebook's going down the gurgler.
Have a better conversation on a YouTube thread. Yeah.
So guys, wherever you're listening, if it's on YouTube, great, you're already there. But even if you're listening with the audio platforms and you want to support us, one of the things that you can do is just jump on the YouTube clip and just leave a comment at the bottom.
The comment I'd like to see is how you would spell the word "mut." Put that in the comments.
Yeah. There's also some things that are going to come out of today's episode that you might be interested in participating in the conversation too, because I got some stuff for that. Again, shout out to everyone who helped us out with that. We really appreciate it. It really helps. And again, it's such a simple thing that you can do to help us out. So, and also, if there's any way that we can continue to help you guys out, again, leave it in the comments. If you want us to talk about a certain subject, if you want us to talk about your business, or if we want to support you guys too.
I like a lot of the comments where there's a contrast with us in different countries. I think it's interesting because we always look at things in the context of Australia. Or obviously, we talk a lot about
America,
but if there's any more internationals, we'd like to hear how this fits into context with other countries.
Definitely. Couple of quick Nady updates, because I haven't really spoken about Nate Dog
Have you
much.
found the remote yet?
No. So, one of Nate's favourite things to do is, and it's so cute, it's so funny, right? Like, you know how we wake up in the morning, and I mean, this is my second coffee of the day already. And we need a little bit of time to sort of ease into the day, and you need to, have breakfast or not, or coffee. Obviously you need to get your water in, as we've discussed, maybe have a shower, and to slowly ease in, and then you can start work. Well, Nate Dog, as soon as he wakes up, it's just ding, and I'm ready to work. And what is Nate's work at the moment is picking up objects from around the house and moving them to places that they don't belong. So, yesterday, it was 2 days ago. So we've got 3 remotes. One's a remote for our Telstra hub, which is basically how we use the smart TV stuff. One of the remotes is just for the TV itself, so primarily used for volume and changing between inputs.
Yep.
And the other remote is the Foxtel remote. So we have 3 remotes. The Telstra hub remote went missing a week ago.
Yep.
Now, fortunately, because it's Telstra hub, I can download an app on my phone, which means I can still control that.
Sure.
So I've looked for it, couldn't find it. It's been okay, because I've been able to adapt, right? The issue was the 2 other remotes went missing yesterday. And as in they were gone, it must have been the night before he'd put them somewhere maybe when we didn't have the TV on. And then they'd gone missing yesterday. So I'm like looking all over the house yesterday and I just couldn't find these remotes. So the TV remote, not such a big deal because you got the controls on the TV itself. What is difficult is Foxtel, because there's no way, I don't think, haven't really looked, but to actually control the Foxtel on the box itself, to be able to switch between channels and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure there is. I'm sure everyone's listening.
Isn't there a Foxtel app? Or do you know the app doesn't pair to the... Is that a separate thing from...
Might be a thing. I might have to look into that as well.
Yeah, or just find a remote. Because they have to be there somewhere.
Yeah, I know, because Nate hasn't left the house.
And he's only limited to things, you know...
Well, funnily enough, the TV remote turned up yesterday afternoon, and the TV remote, well, Amanda, shout out to my wife who I texted during the day going, do you know where the remote is? And she didn't respond, and she knew exactly where it was. Amanda had seen Nate put it in the vitamin drawer during the morning, and then obviously thinks I watch too much TV when I'm at home with Nate.
But you only have to look at things waist height.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing too. He's getting so tall and also now he's gone through this climbing phase. So now it's you actually have to look at multiple levels now too, which does make things more interesting.
Definitely nothing above nipples.
Oh no, it depends. Like, the guy actually climbs up, like, he'll push his pram around now. This is how smart this kid is. And, again, it just sounds like a typical parent. But he'll push his pram around, and then he'll climb up the pram and climb up the back of it so he can grab stuff. Like, he's a turd. It's really annoying. But it's kind of cool.
You should have found the remotes by now.
Yeah, well, haven't found the Foxtel one. So, yeah. But I'll try downloading an app to see if I can get around that too.
Find the remote.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'm sure it's somewhere. But he's been doing some really cool stuff lately. So he just, obviously, he turned one a few weeks ago. He's starting to understand some words. Like, he still babbles and stuff like that. He doesn't really, like, he says dad and he says mum. But apart from that, he doesn't really say many other words. But it's interesting watching him learn to communicate. And one of the biggest developments recently is he's now starting to understand the meaning of the word no.
Right.
And then
he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it. And then the tantrums have already started. So again, this is how advanced the kid is. The terrible twos have already started. He's only 1 year old. And it's really interesting because you'll just say no to him for doing whatever it is, which is usually something that's going to hurt himself or whatever. And he does this thing where he sort of scrunches his face up like this.
Yeah.
And then, like, you can just tell that word, he's like, he understands it and doesn't make him feel good, but he also stops doing what it is he's doing. So it's like now we're at that point where I think a lot of people say when you have kids, the first 12 months is literally about keeping them alive. And then once they're 12 months old, that's when the real game starts of, okay, now I've got to teach this kid to be a fully functional human being. And it's also good too, because now it's like, it's really important for me to check myself and my behaviors and what I'm doing just when he's around, because he'll pick up on those things.
Sure. Isn't there a psychological thing where you're actually trying to not say no, to avoid the tantrums, instead of, like, some techniques that some friends of mine have used is like when they start to do something naughty, just show them something cooler and move them onto that.
Yeah.
So you're not actually saying no and you're not actually getting into that confrontation.
Look,
much like when you're having a fight with your partner, you don't say, you calm down, right?
Yeah.
You change the subject.
See,
that's the best way. If players don't know this, never get in a fight with a woman, because there's no point. Change subject. Pivot.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. The problem is that I would assume that your partner is a fully matured adult with a fully matured brain. So I feel like you're probably right. There's probably levels to the game of what you want to be using the word no for. So you don't want to get to a point where you're just saying no to absolutely everything. But there are certain things like touching the stove when it's on. No, like, that's a danger. You should actually stay away from that. So it probably is a good reminder to only use it when necessary, rather than using it for everything.
But if his automatic response to no is to grimace, and then that part of him will want to do it even more.
Well, he doesn't grimace and then go back to doing the behaviour. So it's like he's understanding what's going on. And again, like, the thing is with kids, they don't know how the world works. So this is about trying to teach him what things are good and positive for him to do, and what things are potentially dangerous for him to do, and trying to curb those behaviours as well. which, funnily enough, this stuff actually rolls into what I wanted to talk about today.
Sure.
So, a bit of a background on this. I had a tradesperson come to the house this week to fix our couch under warranty, because it's got a little electric section which goes up and down, which they've had to replace the motor on. And I had a really interesting conversation with him. And I was telling you about it during the week. So, a bit of a background. The guy is 36 years old, has a family, so he's got a wife, and he's got 2 children, one 8-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. And this conversation literally started because Nate was so fascinated by what he was doing. He was trying to like get in and pull all his tools out and stuff like that. So I had to hold him back. And then Nate's doing this cute little like little giggle thing. And he goes, "Oh, my son used to do the exact same thing. Like I kind of missed that." And then so we started talking about kids and all that sort of stuff. And I don't even know how we got onto the subject of it, but we ended up talking about how he was raised as a kid in a very strict religious household, and how he's only recently come to terms with the fact that religion probably wasn't the right thing for him and maybe for his family, and the rifts that it's now causing between him and his parents.
Yep.
So the subject that I wanted to talk about today was indoctrination. And the thing is, when we're talking about indoctrination, I don't just want to talk about being indoctrinated into a religion, because it's not the only sort of indoctrination that you can experience,
Sure.
right? But getting back to this guy's conversation, so we were talking about these things, and he was explaining about how, again, he had that sort of light bulb moment at a later stage in life where he was realizing that these strict constraints on his life and on the expectations of his life and for what his family should be doing were not making him happy. And because he has actively pulled away from those things, now his parents, who are obviously extremely indoctrinated into that way of life, think that he's making the wrong decisions. And he was saying they still speak to him like he's a child.
Right.
And he was expressing some frustration about, he's like, I'm a 36-year-old man, I have a family, I've got 2 kids of my own, and I run my own business. What else do I need to do for you to treat me like I'm an adult?
Yeah.
Right? And it made me think about a lot of things. One of the things that it made me think about was the just randomness of having a conversation like this with a complete stranger, which shows to me that I think a lot of people in this day and age, they're crying out to have real conversations, and perhaps he doesn't have the ability to have real conversations at home.
Sure.
One of the things that I'm very fortunate for is that my wife and I, intellectually, I'd say, are on a very similar level. She's probably even slightly above me, because I probably get more emotional about things than she does. She's very much level-headed.
Yep. I'd agree with that.
Yep, which is not always the case, but I'll admit it's true. And one of the things I really like about her is that we will have these conversations, and we've got differing views on many different things. We've got many of the same views on certain things, which, especially when it comes to things like child rearing, we're very much on the same page with a lot of things, which obviously I think there are plenty of people out there who have kids and then realise that you're not on the same wavelength in how you're going to raise them. So that's good, but we are able to have conversations about these things and put forth ideas, dissect them, and like I often go, oh yeah, I was wrong on that one, and we sort of move on with it. So clearly this guy was crying out to have a real conversation with someone, so he ended up doing it with a guy he was doing a job for.
Sure.
So one thing out of that, if you find yourself frustrated at all and you want to have one of these real conversations, find someone in your network that you can have them with. And the people that you can have them with might surprise you. Like some of my favourite friends now that I speak to about a lot of these subjects, they're not people I was friends with at high school. They're people I knew of, but for some reason we've come together with a similar understanding and we can have conversations with each other. And one of the big benefits to it is that there's no there's no side effect to your life. Like, you know how, like with him and his parents, for example, he can't really be honest with them because he knows it'll just blow up their relationship.
Sure. There's degrees of separation, so there's no way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can give you like almost the business version of that. I had this
Right.
thought during the week where going out for lunch with people that I deal with
Mm-hmm.
Gets far more productivity out than a normal business
Meeting.
encounter.
Yeah.
But yeah, meetings suck.
Yeah.
Right, meetings suck. Most of the meetings that I've been involved with have not been fruitful.
Side note: Elon Musk hates meetings.
Yeah. So, but not just from the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually that relationship side, being able to build that relationship with them and having a proper understanding of where they come from. And if you don't spend the time to talk to someone, to converse with someone, you'll never know that. You know, and you can't assume it. Well, you definitely can assume it, but it won't get you anyway.
Yeah.
So, I am a massive networker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the phone every day talking to someone about something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm probably more on the extreme side than what most people are,
Mm-hmm.
but I find that it gives me. I like to get a lot of different perspectives on something,
Mm-hmm.
and it has leveled my opinion of things.
Yeah.
So I can see why he'd want to do it. Most people want to talk about themselves if given the opportunity to,
Mm-hmm.
but often they're probably not given the opportunity to. And I'm guessing that this guy goes from house to house, and probably, you know, the normal person will sit on the couch and
Yeah, and pretend he's not there.
yeah. So he was probably very, very thankful for that.
Yeah. So when we're talking about indoctrination, it sort of got me thinking. And obviously, look, religion is one thing that people can become indoctrinated into. So it made me think about things that, number one, you can get indoctrinated in anything. It can be a religion, it can be a political view, it can be a sporting team, it can be a way of eating, like veganism or carnivore diet or whatever it is.
It could be a thought process.
It's absolutely. And the thing is, and this is something that I explained to him too. So working in sales for as long as I did, obviously we talked about, and we've spoken about it many times on this podcast, about the idea of seed planting. And from a sales perspective, sales is literally, and this is going to sound very negative. It's not the intention, but it's literally, how am I going to manipulate your thoughts so that you buy my product?
Persuade's a nice word.
Yeah, but it's manipulation.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. That's what. And again, manipulation has negative connotations, but you know, you can manipulate, clay and create a pot.
The only reason why I wouldn't use the word manipulation in a sales setting, especially in the sales that we worked in, is that we weren't cold calling people. People were walking in, so we were just persuading them to make the decision that they always wanted to make
That's a good
anyway.
point. Yeah.
Whereas manipulation, I would say, is really trying to get someone else from outside that potentially doesn't benefit them,
Yeah.
and trying to manipulate their point of view.
For sure.
That's the
So,
difference
like
between,
cold calling scammers, for example, is probably a
Yeah.
better form of manipulation. But but essentially, you're right. It's persuasion. It's so when we talked about seed planting, it was all about how am I going to plant seeds in your mind that start to grow, so I can actually harvest those later on in the conversation when I need them. And again, this is something that I think about every single day because I was in that world for so long. And I think people who have not been in a sales world or even a marketing world, marketing guys would know the exact same thing. They don't potentially see the world as, everyone's got an agenda, everyone's got a goal they're trying to hit and how they're trying to get there, and they'll do generally what needs to be done. So with him, for example, he obviously was... all the ideas that he held before he finally realised that...
He had that light bulb moment.
He had the light bulb moment. He thought those ideas were his own, but they actually weren't. Because they were just ideas that were told to him enough times when he was young and impressionable that became his own thoughts.
Sure.
And this is something that happens to all of us every single day and we don't even realise it.
Everyone's a product of their environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I brought up the example of, when you hear like a politician making a speech and there's a buzzword they're trying to get out there. So for the sake of the moment, let's say community transmission is the buzzword. And you'll hear the politician will just keep saying community transmission, like multiple times, 18 times in one 3-minute speech. And when you're listening to the whole speech, it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what it's designed to do is it just bangs that word into your head. And if you keep hearing something enough times, you start to believe it subconsciously. So then what happens is when you're at the barbecue on the weekend and one of your mates goes, oh, on community transmission, it goes, bing, oh yeah, I know that. And then we start talking about it, and then that idea begins to spread by community transmission, ironically. So what I really wanted to talk about today is, number one, being mindful of the things that you are potentially becoming indoctrinated into without your knowledge. So actually try to take a step back, take the red pill, step out of the matrix and have a look at it real.
Isn't the blue pill out? Isn't the red pill in?
Yeah, I don't know.
Red pill's in. Red pill's down the rabbit hole.
Take both of the pills.
Don't mix the pills.
Yeah. But the other thing too, and this is probably especially relevant for me, I need to be mindful of the things that I potentially indoctrinate my child into without me knowing.
For sure.
So, if I have views which are not necessarily true, correct, or positive views, which were put into my head by external sources, it's my role as a parent to not put those same thoughts into his head, which is it's a tricky thing, because again, a lot of this stuff is subconscious behavior, which is, I'm 32 years old, so it's subconscious behavior which has been, drummed into me over 32 years. So being able to actually step back and go, oh, like maybe that's not real. Maybe these things I always thought were true are not actually true.
Awareness is the first step. So actually knowing that that stuff happens.
Yeah.
Is probably the most important part of it. I've got no psych background, but I know that if you don't know what's wrong, or if you don't know that there could be a thing that is wrong, then there's no way that you're going to correct it.
Well, it's the first step of AA, isn't it? Like, admitting you have a problem is the first step to actually healing.
So being aware of it, I think is really important. But that indoctrination thing, I think, is funny because it happens in most facets of life. And I think I'd start with the sporting one.
Yep.
Isn't it amazing? And people have been very guilty of it, where they are so blinded by their own team that every single ref call, right, an impartial person would say that's fine, but nah.
Yeah.
That's like an everyday version of what indoctrination can look like. Now, I would hazard to say you would enjoy the game more if you were impartial and you play, like, you wouldn't get riled up just because you thought your team was hard done by. Right? Is that kind of, do you think that would happen? You're more into sports than I am. I flip and change. Like, I have a driver that I like, but I'm not, like, if he doesn't win, then there's no point.
I think with sports, look, I enjoy a lot of sports because I enjoy playing the sports, and I enjoy watching anyone who is the peak of their profession doing whatever it is.
Yep.
I think the reason why teams and that tribalism works and makes it exciting for people is because it feels like you've actually got skin in the game. It's the same way that, like, I can watch a Broncos game, and I've got skin in the game because I'm a Broncos fan. So I've just lost half the podcast now who are footy fans. Yeah. But I can watch a Broncos game and feel excitement and feel the emotional ups and downs of what's happening through the game because I identify with my team.
Sure.
Now I can watch another game that doesn't have the Broncos in it, and I can just enjoy the spectacle.
Yeah.
If you want to get a similar feeling to having skin of the game, you could gamble on that game.
Yep.
Because it's a similar feeling, because you feel like you've got something to gain or something to lose when you've actually got skin in the game.
Tribalism's an indoctrination as well.
100%. And it happens every day, and it happens with the smallest things, and a lot of it's around advertising, like Coke versus Pepsi. There's not that many people that drink both Coke and Pepsi because they've known that they've been rivals for many years. I drink Coke and Pepsi, not very often. Usually when I just get fast food. There will be people, we know plenty of people who will only drink Pepsi Max because they'll never touch a Coke. But that's just marketing.
Yeah.
Ford and Holden, it's the same thing. It was people trying to market a product, so they created tribes.
Ford definitively won that one.
Oh yeah, when I saw the news story that they had bought out the old Sutton's Holden dealership,
Yeah.
like one of the biggest Holden dealers in New South
They
Wales.
didn't buy him out. They just moved the franchise to.
Yeah, sorry, they just moved in because Holden had died. So yeah, they won. And hey, we grew up in a Holden family,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So again, this is something that I want everyone to take a bit of a mental audit of their beliefs and go, okay, what are my habits I do every single day? What do I eat? What do I drink? What media do I consume? And why?
Mm.
Is it actually because I feel like it's the right thing for me to do?
Or is it just what you've been exposed
Or
to?
is it just what I've been exposed to and now it's become habit? And there's a quote I'll just share from the 15 Disciplines, which is a thing that's coming up very often because my wife's super into it and it's a great book. But your thinking determines your actions. And this is paraphrase, it's a bit longer. But your thinking determines your actions determine your habits, and your habits determine your character.
Mm.
So if we're not actively thinking about what we're doing every single day, it's because our original thoughts have become our actions and our actions have become our habits. And the habits can be tougher to break, especially if you don't realise that
That they are a habit.
that they are a habit. That's right.
Okay, so let me not counter it, but I want to pose this question.
Mm-hmm.
Why should someone do that? Why should someone do this? Why should someone be aware of their indoctrination?
Because, for me, there's a few reasons. Number one, I feel like if you're indoctrinated into a certain perspective, you're missing a lot of what's available in life. There are a lot of things, people often say true growth comes from outside your comfort zone. So you've actually got to get outside the square to truly grow as a person. If you only want to look at a certain a certain bit of information or whatever, you're actually missing a lot of what's happening in the world.
Sure.
So that's number one.
Yep.
Number two is, I think if you took a general, honest poll of the entire population, the entire adult population we'll go with, fully grown, matured adult population, if you took a poll and you said, honestly, every single day, are you happy? I think you would have a very large percentage of people who would say no. And this is something I brought up, I think maybe a week or two ago, where how every single time you go to a dinner party or a barbecue or something like that, everyone's whinging about something. It's all different stuff, but everyone's whinging about something. I feel like having steadfast beliefs on something can lead to an unhappiness, especially if, like with what happened with the gentleman at my house, if it's putting massive wedges between you and key members of your life, like your family, for example. So I think actually, oftentimes when you're dealing with people who are closed-minded, which is sort of what we're talking about, you have to be open-minded first. So if you want to actually improve these things,
You have to build a bridge.
That's right. All you can control is yourself
Yep.
and your own actions. So if instead of just trying to ram your beliefs down someone else's throat who doesn't believe with you, who doesn't agree with you, why don't we employ that listening to understand and actually go, okay, look, I'm actually going to pull myself out of my own beliefs. I'm going to go to your side for a little while and we'll see what it's like. And then I'm going to find some things about that I can agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to actually create some common ground.
It's not just the common ground. It's going to help you find the truth, and that's what we're all about.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you brought it up after that particular interaction, because I had a similar interaction. I only overheard it at dinner.
Right.
And this person had said, basically resigned to the fact that they're not going to change. This is how they are. If you don't like it,
Right.
who cares?
Yep.
And I think that person listens to this podcast.
Right.
And I actually want to reach out to that person and say, you aren't the same person you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is a narrative that you've built for yourself to protect yourself.
It's a defense mechanism,
It's a
for
defense
sure.
mechanism.
Yeah.
And you can be you, but you could even be a better you. And please note, anything that we're saying is not about we're not trying to benefit you in the eyes of society. We're not trying to benefit you in the eyes of religion. We're not trying to better you in the eyes of financial standing, like what a lot of society does,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
We are trying to say be a better you, and using yourself as the yardstick for that.
Yeah.
So I would hope that all of us, and especially I think the people listening to this, because they if you've clicked on it, you're already sort of, or if you stayed with us, it's been a sort of a constant theme of
That's
ours.
right. Yeah.
I'd challenge this person to look at themselves and have an understanding of that part of self-indoctrination.
That's right.
And be okay with advancing as a person. Because like you said, when you have that sort of talk about your psyche, you are cutting yourself off to opportunities. It could be financial, could be relationship opportunities. It could be work opportunities. It could be a whole range of things. If you have that negative mindset, well, this is me, and if that doesn't work, it's because we're never going to work. Well, do you know what? You've guaranteed that.
Yeah, that's right. And look, it is a scary thought to open yourself up to saying perhaps things that I think are wrong. It's scary. As human nature, one of the biggest things that we are so scared of is ostracization. Ostracization? Being ostracized, we'll go with. Like being removed from the
I
group.
want to try. Ostracize. Shit. Is that a word? Can you check?
Ostracization? I'm sure it's a word.
Or is it being ostracized? There's got to be a... Put it in the comments, whether we're right or wrong.
Ostracization.
To Siri.
Yeah, I don't want Siri to listen to me. Ostracism. Oh, here we go. Is ostracization a word? Now, the fact or state of being ostracized. So it is.
Yeah, but say it.
Ostracization.
Ostracization.
Yeah.
Bam. We've done it.
Great content.
We've grown.
Content.
We've grown.
But yeah, like as human beings, we fear that, right? So because, like, I keep always referring back to the caveman days, and again, when people switch off, if they switch off when I talk about this stuff, you're being affected by your inner workings and evolution way more than you think. Which is why things like marketing work. Which is why things like tribalism work. Because we're innately...
That's why makeup works for mating.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, like, this human evolution stuff, it ain't, it's not...
It ain't woo-woo.
Yeah, it's not woo-woo. It's science.
It's true.
Absolutely. So we fear that. So again, to open yourself up and be vulnerable and go, wow, maybe my beliefs aren't actually my own, and maybe they're not actually making me happy. That's a scary thing to do. But true growth and true progression and happiness often it's right there for you. It's just on the other side of hard work, and it is hard work. Like, I guess to share one of my indoctrinated things, I was indoctrinated to think that, like typical household, the dad works and the mum takes care of the kids. That's the world that I grew up in. And like, when we talk about indoctrination, one of the things I always think about too is what media did we consume as kids? So our generation, so we're around, we're Gen Ys, we're around 30 to mid-30s. All the... like Disney movies and stuff back when we were kids, for girls in particular, had girls who were like, you'd always be rescued by a prince and live happily ever after.
Sure.
Like, funnily enough, they call them fairy tales, because they kind of are, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I think a lot of people have gone through their lives just expecting that to happen, because that's what they were, again, indoctrinated into when they were young and impressionable. And what I find really interesting is how things like kids' movies seem to, they actually move with the times. And that's why I think you do see some progression, because a lot of these kids' movies, like, we're now going through, well, not even now, but like over the last few years, has been a bit more of a phase of having strong female leads, which is a good thing, because it shows that, instead of raising young girls to think that you're just going to be rescued by a prince and you don't have to do anything, Like,
Yeah, you all need to watch. Like any woman that is indoctrinated by that needs to go watch the Resident Evil saga, the entire thing.
strong female
She's the
lead.
baddest bitch.
Yeah.
She
Or watch the Alien saga.
Underworld.
The original strong female lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
So-
other good ones? There's heaps of good ones. Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
The last one sucks. The first one was really good.
Yeah. I had some issues with Wonder Woman. I think they missed a opportunity.
What?
Because I felt like, and again, I haven't watched it recently, but I remember the immediate feeling that I got was that she was this amazing person, but she did too much stuff for a bloke.
But that's the whole. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. That she has a heart.
Yeah, but I just felt like she was doing it for a boy when she should have just been the superhero anyway.
Yeah. You need to watch it again.
Yeah, okay, I'll
You need to watch
rewatch
it
it.
again with that because that is an example of indoctrination of what you thought it was
Could have
supposed
been,
to be. Yeah.
absolutely could have been.
Yeah.
So I'll rewatch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to like indoctrination and like, you know, it's really interesting for me to see how ideals they grow over
Shift,
time
yeah.
and they shift
so we
over
should
time.
as a society.
100%. So again, it's if you are finding yourself sitting there listening to the podcast going, I don't want to do this, that's probably your first red flag that you should.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was getting back to my example. So me personally, one of the big shifts for me, obviously, I had a child and now I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Yep.
I only realised yesterday I've been off work for 6 months now.
Yep.
Now I'm more exhausted than I've ever been, which tells me work's easy, parenting's hard.
Yeah.
But that was a massive shift for me, and I think I may have shared on the podcast a few weeks ago. I can't remember, but I may have just spoken to you about it. But me personally, on a mental level, there was parts of my brain which were subconscious, which were still fighting against my existence from when I first quit my job for a few months, and it was difficult because like I found myself resenting some things that Nate was doing because I was like, you're taking me away from being able to do the things that my brain wants me to do. Right? And I can remember it was probably only January-ish that switch actually flipped and it actually turned itself off. And that was hard, right? That was hard work. But I've never been happier. Like I used to get a lot of enjoyment out of my work and my work achievements and what I was able to achieve in the office. Now that's replaced, and now I'm happier. I'm healthier as well. My family life is better than it has been. Like when I was working in Brizzy, like I was away from home 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good for relationships, is it? You know, so you know that's an example from me, personal experience of a massive mindset shift and having to realize that just being a workaholic's not making me happy. And I've had to change all that, and it was rough, but now I feel like I've grown from it, and I'm better off because of it.
I can give you my growth thing, and this has been a much slower move. Is I've never been. I would have considered myself an atheist, and when I was younger, I didn't like. I actually not only did I not like religion, but I thought they were almost evil.
Right.
You know, a lot of in my opinion back then was that a lot of wars had started over religion. And it's only when I've got older that I've realised we're going to make war no matter what. Like,
Yeah,
there's
that's
no
right.
religion, we'd figure out how to hurt someone. But another realisation I got to when I think with a really open mind is that without religion, there actually isn't a framework to live. There's not a framework to live as a good person.
That's right.
So there's nothing in science that says, or there probably is studies in science, but there's nothing. There's no way that that's broadcast to people to say, be nice to your neighbour. There's nothing that says, don't hurt people, don't harm people. So now I've got, and it happened years ago, but now I've just got this completely different thought of it. If you are practicing in religion, that is a really mindful and thoughtful thing to do.
Absolutely.
Not just for you, but for most of your peers.
Yeah.
Now there are extreme sides, just like there's probably extreme atheism, and I had extreme atheism thoughts in the past, but I have grown, and I was wrong about my opinion has progressed over time because I was wrong.
And that brings up an amazing point too. because with every single thing in this life, there are extreme outliers.
Mm.
And the problem is, in any debate, in any argument about any subject, people always want to just quote the extreme
Yeah.
outliers as the reason why that particular way of life is wrong.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that. Because
Well,
extreme outliers are extreme outliers.
It should be rated like an Olympic gymnast routine. Don't they cut the top and the bottom score off so you get and it's the score of the middle?
Well, yeah, like,
And that's what we should do.
because at the end of the day, there's just bad people in the world. You know, some people are just bad people because, again, unfortunately, a lot of it comes from indoctrination too. Like, how often do you see, you know, kid comes from a bad family, grows up to become a bad adult, has kids, and the cycle continues. Like, it's, you know,
It's bad. It's bad upbringing. It's bad diet.
Yeah.
It's bad health. It's bad working environments. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's not a. I think a massive part is being unable to communicate your point. And like you said, that guy that came around to your house and you
Yeah.
could chat with him, that was probably a massive load off his chest.
for sure, and
Imagine
you could
if someone-
see it. He was so relaxed on the way out.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to ask me for my number on the way out of there.
So imagine someone who has never had one of those conversations.
Yeah, and no, and
the
even
need for
worse.
that doesn't go away.
But even worse, has maybe had something that's frustrated them happen at school, has gone home and spoken to his parents about it, and the parents have gone, oh, fuck them, like, rah, 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 and just filled them with more aggression about that
Yeah.
particular thing. And you see it. You see that stuff all the time. So, but you're right, like, because on the religion thing, I was very similar. And again, I don't know exactly where that came from, but when I was a kid, like, you know, I was not religious, and I remember when I was in primary school, I went to a friend of mine's house on a Sunday, and I didn't realise that they came to pick me up. I didn't realise that going to that friend's house meant having to go to church first. And I felt like I was suckered into it. I felt so uncomfortable because I'd never been to church before. And again, I guess, like, I've always had that indoctrinated thought of, you know, like, there's no higher power watching me, you know, making sure that I'm doing the right thing all the time. And if I don't, then I'm going to go blind and grow hair on my hands and whatever. But yeah, then now as I grow older, you're exactly right. Like, what most religions are, it's just a
template.
A template to live your life by, to live as a good person in a community.
Yeah.
Because again, if you want to just go full science and full biology, the world looks pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Because full science, full biology is
Look after yourself, fend for your own. Fend for yourself.
it's natural selection.
Yeah.
Only the strong survive,
Yeah.
right? And the strong can take whatever they want. And that's not, you don't want to live in that society.
Yeah. Aspects of that do happen,
Look, aspects of that absolutely do happen. And
especially in the business world.
Yep. Which again, like, this is one of those conversations I have a lot where a lot of people think that animalistic world doesn't exist anymore because we live in a polite society. Bullshit. Happens every day. And it
Yeah.
happens in your interactions, you don't even realise it.
What I'd say further to that is that if you think that it's not happening, it's because they're laying in wait.
Yeah.
The predators are laying in wait, and they want you to think that.
Well, yeah,
That's the whole
you've already
idea.
been preyed on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'll give you a really good example of the manipulation thing, which I want to talk about, is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the perfect example of manipulation from both sides. Because Donald Trump himself, you know, the way that he speaks, and, like, you know, we've had the greatest numbers and the greatest thing and the greatest that and the greatest thing. Like, he's convincing people that he's right. And, you know, a lot of people are like, no, he's not. Well, yeah, he is. There's a section of people out there who are believing him and who are agreeing with him. Whether he's right or wrong, he's just saying it anyway.
Yeah.
On the other side of politics, everyone's saying that he's bad. And the key thing that I'll bring up was a lot of people, if you ask them, do you think Donald Trump's racist? They say yes.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation. There is no proof of him being racist at all.
There is if you only grab the soundbite where
That's
he says
right.
it and not the 30 seconds either side.
Again, which is a manipulation tool, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you actually looked into it, he's not a racist person, never has been. But that is a purveying wisdom around most of Western society that Donald Trump's a
an
racist.
indoctrinated view.
That's right, because that's what you have been told to think.
I sent you that study that
Oh yeah,
who cares no, I think the question was something like, are you concerned
Are you bothered by the fact that
Joe Biden's a old white man?
Yeah.
And it was separated by race?
Yeah, so it was they asked white people, African Americans and Hispanics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only people that cared
With
were
white
the
people.
whites.
That's right.
And the whites were outraged.
Yeah.
And the others, meh.
Yeah. And that is something which is starting to become indoctrinated into Western culture.
Yeah.
It's essentially self-loathing white guilt.
Yeah.
Um,
But what they're doing is even worse, because you're saying it's guilt, but you're actually not doing anything about it except being outraged by it and trying to upset everyone and trying to call people racist.
well, that other clip that you sent me comes to mind, where there was it was in America, and there was like I think it was in like a college lecture or something like that. And a woke white male gets up and starts talking about how there's a massive wealth inequality in the world, and the rich people need to actually give their housing and like money and wealth, like they need to share it with the other people. And the lecturer called him out, and rightfully so. He was like, well, what have you done? Because you're actually in like the top 10% of wealth in the world. But you're not doing it. You're not living your truth.
Yeah.
If you were, you would give your house to someone else who needs it.
You give this position in
That's
a
right.
college to someone.
But what you're doing is you're standing there telling me that everyone else has to do something first before you'll do anything.
Yeah.
So you're not living your truth at all. You're just full of shit.
Yeah.
And again, this is why taking that mental audit is really important. Because if you don't, it's really easy to see how people who've got good intentions end up becoming extreme in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like you can.
There's a song about it. Good girls go bad. No.
It's
kind of different.
I've got no idea what you're talking about. But like,
Like S-Club 7.
But you can easily see how someone starts with what is a good idea.
They definitely think they're doing the right thing.
They definitely think they're doing the right thing, and then they can just end up way out here, and they wake up in a cold sweat one day and go, "What the fuck have I done? What have I become?"
The problem is that a lot of people will never realise that part because they get into these stoushes online or when they have a conversation with someone that's trying to be level-headed about it. Well, if you don't agree with that, and then fuck you.
Yeah.
And you just start working yourself and winding this coil up and up and up and up until you break. You're only going to break.
For sure.
Or you're just going to find your community that wholeheartedly believes, and like you said before, you're not going to see any of the other world that's outside of your thought.
Do you know the group of people in particular that probably I think they're getting out to the far reaches and it's concerning?
S-Club 7.
No, because S-Club 7 are dead. I'm pretty sure. Banging hits though. They've got some bangers. No, people who think the world has an overpopulation problem.
I think I spoke about the reason why this can't happen on the podcast. Did I mention
I think you have mentioned it before. But the people themselves who hold the belief that the world has an overpopulation problem, like, if you think there's a problem, solve it. But they're not solving it. They're like, how are we going to get rid of some of the other people?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and again, that is one of those things where they start going, climate change is a real thing. We've got to do something to fix it. Human beings are the problem. And like, see how they're stepping it out? And you can see they started with the right intentions.
Yeah.
And it can end up in going Thanos and get rid of half the planet.
Yeah, but not me.
Yeah, but not me.
Not me.
Because I'll still be here. Because I've got the glove on.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then you guys are
I
gone.
collected all these stones.
Yeah, and now,
it's not easy.
and now I'm here to reap all the benefits. 'Cause now that I've gone, look at all these houses that are left here, which I can now just take for myself.
Where are all my friends?
Yeah.
I've shifted one as well. I've shifted another thing. This will be more controversial.
Right.
My views on climate change have changed.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So, at the risk of being completely ostracised by everyone.
Hey, this is a safe place, right?
Okay, the internet's a safe place.
The internet
right?
is a safe place.
Cool.
Only positive interactions can happen on the internet.
I don't believe that humans have as much effect on climate change as what even the science says. Reason being, do I think we should move to net zero? Absolutely. Why? Because why not? You know, it makes sense to have renewable energy, in my opinion. It makes sense to have renewable. It makes sense to use the sun. Makes sense to use the wind.
Yep.
Makes sense to use the water, the currents in the water. It makes sense to have hydro. That makes sense to me because it's there all the time.
Yeah.
What I, I remember reading things years ago that the Earth has had more carbon in the air than what it has now. Now, that could have been through a catastrophe, possibly, right? What do I think some of our policies that we're trying to really, really push, and Australia has definitely not gone as hard as what some other countries have.
And has been criticised because of that too.
Definitely criticised, but I kind of see why now, especially when you realise, like, economically, you can do more damage to the actual individuals on this planet now if you economically hurt them.
Yeah.
And that happens in the now. We work on a 4-year cycle of politics, but also, I think if Mother Nature wanted to change, she'd change. And at the moment, what a lot of the big arguments is that, well, if us developed countries, we do it, all it's going to do is create markets for less developing countries to maximise, and they will just... So if we stop using the coal, China will use it.
Yeah.
If we stop using coal, India will use it. Do you know what I mean? So I can kind of understand now why, especially in Australia, there's been that reluctance to do it. Do I think we should move to better forms of energy? Absolutely. Do I think we should be doing it at massive economic costs to the country? No, I don't. Now, people say that sucks for the poorer places. It does. It does. They're going to have to fight their own battles.
Yeah.
As harsh as it sounds, I can only affect what's happening here. I can only vote for policy that happens here. Do I think this massive push to, talk about indoctrination? Everyone thinks that we should go electric cars tomorrow. The boss of Toyota came out and said, because the Japanese government said that they want to do it. The boss of Toyota, who has invested more in electrifying cars than anyone, because they invented hybrid, well, not invented, but they really pioneered retail sale of hybrid before anyone. He said, we don't have the infrastructure to do this.
That's right.
It's a pipe dream. So it's a great indoctrinating thing to say. Go electric, do this, do that. But does everyone know what the best thing for the environment is in terms of cars? Do you know
Don't
what it
have
is?
them.
Hey?
Don't have them.
Well, either don't have them, but do you know what else? Do you know what's the best, the best car to drive for the environment?
What?
Your old car.
Right.
So there's numerous studies. If you just maintain an old car and keep it going, it is better than buying a new car
Yeah, that's
with
right.
all the latest technology.
Yeah.
And no one talks about that. There's no indoctrination attempt to talk about that.
Yeah.
But that's the case.
Now, okay, a few things to unpack out of this. For one, climate change is 100% an indoctrination.
Yeah, it is real.
It is real. The climate will change.
Yeah.
That's
It has
fact.
done.
That's reality,
Yep.
right? So there will be people who listen to that who are immediately triggered by that. And to those people, I want to encourage you to just stick around and, number one, listen, but number two, voice your opinions on the YouTube comments.
Yeah. Or and
Right?
do the research on
So,
the other side as well.
but so we can actually have a conversation about it.
For sure.
So,
But don't just sling.
no.
Actually have a look. Something that we talk about here all the time is we always want to have a look at the other side. So I've done some research on the other side now, and that's changed my view.
Yeah.
And before you just go out and start shooting.
Because again, you were 100% on board that climate change was real and it was mainly caused by humans.
Yep.
Right? Now, there's no denying that we've accelerated the causes of climate change, right? However, as you've said before, there is evidence, and again, the biggest problem with science, in my opinion, is people are happy to believe science when it supports their beliefs,
Yeah.
and they're not happy to believe science that doesn't. And the primary issue I see with any of these things in Western society, which I'm going to primarily speak about Australia and about America, is it all gets back to having 3 and 4 year political cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem is we have it marketed to us by political parties who, you have to remember, their number one concern is to take power and take the top job. That is their number one concern.
And get back in power.
Right?
Power.
Get either retain power or get back into power.
Yep.
That is these people's number one concern. So what they will do is they will throw out sensitive subjects like climate change to people and catastrophize them to say, we need to take instant action right now. And our party will do that.
Yeah.
The reason why they do this is to indoctrinate people into following their political party so basically it's the means to get their political end.
Yeah, it's an extreme means.
That's right. And this is one of those things where, like I was saying, climate change has been banged into people's heads for so many years now that it's become fact. But I would say it is pseudo-fact, because if you actually do some research, there is evidence on the other side of the spectrum for this. There is evidence to state that, yeah, the climate changes and it's just one of Earth's natural cycles.
Yeah.
Like it goes through these
The
things.
volcano goes off. It's like, no matter what you've done, you could be, the whole world
Yeah.
could be at net zero. The volcano goes off.
Yeah.
And we're worse off than what we were.
Now, there is no denying that there are some things that we can do to create better outcomes for the environment. There is no denying
For sure.
that.
Absolutely.
But I think, look at what's happening in Texas at the moment is a really good example. Texas is currently undergoing horrendous, blizzard-like conditions, right? Massive snowstorms, huge power outages, because the Texas agenda for so many years has been converting to renewable energy sources. Now those renewable energy sources aren't working. A lot of them was like wind turbine and solar energy, which when you've got blizzards and the blizzards have frozen the wind turbines and there's no sun,
Yeah.
you don't have access to those energy sources. So you still need traditional forms of energy to
Well,
be able
it doesn't
to
necessarily need to be traditional. It just needs to be
alternatives.
an alternative
Yeah.
to the things that.
And I guess, look, if you look at energy like an investment portfolio, everyone says diversify.
Yeah.
Because one of your parts of your portfolio will go down at some point.
For sure.
And another part will go up at some point.
Yeah.
There is other factors to think too of if you went to a zero emissions on carbon, what feeds the plants? Like plants feed off CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
So if you got to a point where you had zero emissions, what are the plants going to eat to then grow, to then create food for us?
Yeah, we actually don't know what that world looks like.
No.
Now, there's also a lot of talk around the reason why people are pushing this climate change thing so hard is because there's massive financial benefits
100%.
for certain people.
For certain people.
Yeah, so we can move. So all you're doing is shifting the wealth from oil, coal, right, traditional forms of energy.
Yep.
And someone's gone, hey, if we just push this, I'm going to start up this company, and that's going to make me a fortune. Now you have to understand that you need to have that stuff in mind when making decisions on these things, because it's not all for the good of the world.
No,
A lot of it's for the good of someone's pocket.
That's right. And the thing is, this is going to be my next point on it. So oftentimes what happens in these debates is you have the climate change activists bring up that climate change is an issue, and then people talk about the economy. And the climate change activists go, this is disgusting. All you want to talk about is money. And we've got this very real, catastrophe that's happening. And what a lot of people don't understand is our economy runs the world and how we live. And the thing is, if you don't have a robust economy which allows people to create a living for themselves, you will very quickly see our culture that we know and love and cherish deteriorate into the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Because it's that whole thing of like people who forget history are doomed to repeat it.
Mm.
I encourage you to do some research into what has happened in, for example, some communist countries when the people have not had any food.
Mm.
And look at what that world looks like.
And you can look now. That stuff's happening in
Now.
2021.
Yeah. And I can tell you right now, that's not a world that you want to live in. And I can tell you right now too, that's not in a
Go
world
and visit
that,
Venezuela now
yeah,
and pay 1 month's wage for a roll of toilet paper.
yeah. Like, that is not a world that any of us are equipped to live in. And the problem is when your answer is turn off all the factories, shut everything down, well, now people in Texas are realizing what it's like to live without power. Like, you need to be able to turn the lights on.
Mm.
You need to be able to go to the store and get food.
Mm.
Like, these are things that we are so privileged and blessed to be able to do.
Almost indoctrinated into
Almost
that way of life.
indoctrinated, yep. And the thing is, you actually don't look at what the alternative is. And it's ugly. It's very ugly.
Yeah, I don't think people realise, like, yeah, I think the climate activists means well.
Yeah.
They truly believe that they're doing the right thing for
Of
the
course.
world. You know, and you've got to commend them for that. And the fact, you know, if they are protesting, they're literally putting their all into doing it. But do they know what that looks like?
One of the other things too, I think it was Warren Buffett said once that, it might have been Warren Buffett, I don't want to put words in his mouth if it wasn't him, but it was some very wealthy man who had said that he thought climate change wasn't real. And his proof of climate change not being real was he can still go and get a 30-year mortgage on beachfront property.
Oh, yeah, economics around the world, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, that, what he's essentially saying is that the bankers and the people who know what's going on, they don't believe that climate change is real because otherwise they wouldn't give you a mortgage that you're going to pay off over 30 years on an asset that's going to disappear in that time.
Yeah.
Which is, again, what we are being told day in, day out. And again, this gets
Now,
back...
just I just want to add another layer to what you've just said.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by the people that know what's going on? I mean the people that have massive financial interest into
Yeah.
getting their bets right.
Yep.
It's not a gamble for them because they've put all the effort into understanding what's going to happen.
That's right.
That's why they are willing to give you a 30-year loan
Yep.
on beachfront property.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Yeah, so...
and it sounds stinky, but if you weren't a bank, if you were a person that has put that much effort into it and put that much resource into knowing what the answer is, you'd feel more confident in your decision too.
That's right. We talk about due diligence. They've done their due diligence.
Hard.
Yeah. Now, the problem is, and again, this is something that is happening a lot in Western culture, is we catastrophize everything. The language, and like language is so important, and this is another thing that comes up week in, week out on this podcast. The language that we are consuming every single day is catastrophized language, which is designed to make us look at it. So, I mean, you'll do a YouTube video scroll and all the titles that you see, and it's like, this person slams that person for blah, and it's like, you know, really it's just, they just share a point.
Sure.
This person shares their perspective on this subject.
Going back to the riverfront thing or the waterfront thing, I love seeing those rich people, you know, when the house is taken away their veranda, like, what's the council gonna do? And like, mate, you're a multi.
Yeah.
Fix it.
Yeah.
Like, fix it yourself, bro.
Well, and look, that right there comes down to a lot of these things, which is a lot of people want to point fingers at everyone else and say that you're the reason why the world's a bad place and they do nothing about it themselves. So, again...
I'm doing my part by selling old cars.
yeah,
I'm
exactly right.
recycling old cars.
I actually couldn't believe it. I bought fuel this morning and E10 or whatever was $1.60.
I wouldn't have never bought E10 before in my life.
My Serato loves it.
No, 98 for me.
give
And
me some of that E10.
I paid $1.33 for 98.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's just the days.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotta get the right days.
But yeah, so getting back to this subject, do I believe that climate change is real? Yeah, 100%. Because the world is an organism.
Yep.
So if you have different inputs that go into an organism, it affects people it affects things in different ways. If you eat healthy food for 6 months straight and then you switch to a shit diet, you will get a change in your body because you're an organism too, right? The earth is a living thing. What I want to encourage everyone to do, because this is that sales thing I keep getting back to, and like you've made the point too, I want you to listen to what, whether it's politicians, business people, influencers, whoever it is, I want you to listen to what they're saying. We're included, right? I want you to listen to us and do the same thing. Listen to everything with not only a grain of salt, but I want you to ask yourself, what are they trying to achieve by saying these things?
Yeah.
Because if people are going out into a public forum to say anything, it's to achieve an end. That's the
And
only reason why you go
usually-
out into public.
What do the investigators say? Follow the money.
Follow the money. Absolutely.
Follow the money.
100%. And again, like the problem is the more, and this is the indoctrination thing, the more indoctrinated you get into a certain subject, the easier you are to manipulate. Fact. So if you are a climate change activist and you are fully 100% indoctrinated into that, and a political party comes out and says climate change is a real thing, you need to vote for us because we'll fix it, you'll vote for them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what their other policies are, you will vote for them. Because they've realised that this is a polarising subject that they can pull on your heartstrings,
Yep.
and that pulling on your heartstrings is the means to their end, which is either retaining
power,
or regaining political power.
Yeah.
Like, you need to start looking at the world like that.
You need to start researching the other side and finding the truth.
Yeah. And
Good.
DuckDuckGo. If you want to do research, go on DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, I only use it now.
Yeah, because if you
Hey,
go on
hey.
Google, there's only certain things that the big tech companies want you to believe. So it's amazing how many news stories don't show up on Google.
We haven't spoken about no news on Facebook.
Oh yeah, that's probably relevant too.
So it happened. So we're filming this on Saturday.
Yep.
2 days ago, Facebook said no more news.
Yeah.
Um.
So the legislation came into place in Australia.
Yep.
Which, again, a lot of people don't really understand what the legislation is. It's essentially making it necessary for big tech companies to actually go to the bargaining table with media producers to then come to an agreement for what that content is worth and pay for the content. That's what it is. Facebook, yeah, has gone, no news!
Yeah.
No news for you!
Yeah.
Come back 1 year.
Google's come up with some Google money.
Yep. But hey, they struck an agreement.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So Google has gone the mature, smart business route and gone,
Shout
okay.
out to Google.
Yeah, well done, Google.
Yeah.
But they've literally gone, okay, so the landscape's changing and we can't change that. So how can we get in front of this thing and create agreements that work for us?
Yep.
And they've done that, and they've signed agreements with the majority of Australian media
Yep.
producers. And they will with the remaining in the next few days, I'm sure. Facebook's just gone, nah, I don't want to change. Nah, fuck you and your news. And it's just taken all the news off. And we said weeks ago that, like, I think Facebook is dying. And they're accelerating that process.
Yeah, massively.
I've had many people in my newsfeed just recently going, due to Facebook's behaviour over the last few days, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they've cancelled their accounts.
Yeah.
Like, it's very interesting to watch because, again, like, you got to think, all this stuff is motivated by money. All of it is money from Facebook's perspective because they don't want to
And from a news
change.
perspective.
And from a news perspective as well. But Facebook doesn't want the world to change because it's going to affect their revenues. So what they've done is they've, like, had a tantrum and removed all news from the platform, including government health news when we have a global pandemic.
Yeah. But Batuta's back.
Well, it's the only reputable news source out there.
At the moment it is.
But some interesting things out of this. I saw, and again, it was on ABC. The ABC News app was the most highly downloaded app in Australia on the day after this all happened.
Interesting.
which, in a way, I like this because I had a conversation with a friend of mine. Shout out to Luke. We had a brief conversation about this. I think it was either yesterday or the day before, and he was saying that he was a bit annoyed because he used to use Facebook to get all his news.
Sure.
And I said, well, I think it's actually a good thing for people to have to go to a reputable news source now, which, like, to actually get their real news instead of going to Facebook. And he said that, but now Facebook's just going to be full of fake news. I said, yeah, but at least people can distinguish the two.
But I don't think it will be. A lot of people have said that, but if it's news, it's off. And a lot of these fake news, they're organisations.
Mm.
They're fake news organisations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not seen any.
Yeah,
in the last couple of days, I've not seen one.
Right. Because I think, again, the key thing for me about all of this stuff is that real news media publishers in Australia are responsible and legally obligated to report factual things.
Mm.
And if you can prove that they've knowingly not done that, they can be sued, there's massive liability. Whereas social media platforms, they are protected because it's user-generated content,
Yeah.
and they are not liable for user-generated content.
No, they should be.
Right? And that's always been the thing. And you're right, I don't think they should be either.
Yeah.
So this might actually be a good thing. Because I think the problem is...
It's going to be a great thing.
Yeah, but like the problem with beforehand was that people, like a lot of people didn't know what was true factual news and what wasn't. Like there is a lot of people out there who would have thought the Batuta Advocate was real news, was real reporting, because people are gullible. At least now there's a separation, and now people going, all right, I want to see what's happening on the news. Okay, I'm going to look at the ABC News app. That might actually be a positive
Yeah,
thing.
if you're seeing it on Facebook, it's probably not legit.
Yeah, especially if it's gone viral on Facebook.
Or go and search for yourself.
Yeah,
Go and search for yourself.
search for truth.
DuckDuckGo.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Follow the money.
And on that note, we'll see you next RDO.
Bitcoin to 200,000.
But don't buy it.